It was 10:38 on a Monday morning when I noticed the voicemail. I was standing in my kitchen, watching my coffee go cold in a chipped mug I never threw out because my brother gave it to me. Outside, the recycling truck was rattling down the block. Inside, I had no idea yet that everything I thought I knew about my brother was about to fracture. I wasn't even supposed to get the voicemail. That's what kept looping through my head afterward. I mean, I hadn't spoken to the guy who left it. I didn't even know his name yet. But his voice came through my phone, heavy and tired, and by the end of the message, my stomach felt like it had been tied off in knots. But before I get to that, I should probably back up. My name's Drew, I'm 33. I work maintenance for the school district, mostly HVAC and busted door frames. I'm the older brother. My brother's name is Ethan. He's 30. Technically, we're still close if birthdays and check-in texts count, but we haven't really deeply talked in over a year. We both grew up in the same house, same parents, same everything. But the older we got, the more it felt like Ethan had found an off-ramp from everything that shaped me. I stayed local. He moved to Chicago. I kept fixing things. He started working in nonprofit admin. He always had something going on that sounded important. Meetings, projects, fundraisers. Sometimes I wondered if he said busy just to avoid talking. The last time we saw each other in person was our mom's birthday dinner back in March. He flew in for exactly 28 hours, showed up with some mid-range wine, made polite conversation, then bailated early for a morning flight. I noticed he barely touched the food and never once asked how I was doing. I didn't push it, I never do. So when I got that voicemail on Monday morning, I assumed it was just a wrong number. I was rinsing out a thermos in the sink, halfway through mentally planning my route for the day, 2 service calls and maybe stopping by the hardware store when the screen lit up. Missed call, unknown number, 1 voicemail. I tapped play on speaker without thinking. That was the moment things shifted. "Hey Ethan," the man said, voice gravelly like someone who'd smoked too long or slept too little. "It's me. I wasn't sure whether to call or not, but your number's still in my phone. I'm down in Joliet. They moved me again. The caseworker said you didn't respond last time, but I wanted to try anyway. I'll be here a few more weeks. I'm clean now, been clean for 10 months. Anyway, if you still care, or if you ever did, you can reach me at this number. If not, I get it." There was a beat of silence before he added, quieter, "I hope your life's better than mine turned out." Click. That was it. No name, no details, just a weight that hung in the air like smoke. I stood there, one hand still wet from the sink, just staring at the phone. It hadn't been addressed to me, but it had come to me. A voicemail from my brother left on my phone. And the guy knew Ethan, knew him well enough to sound hurt, well enough to expect silence, well enough to leave one final breadcrumb before disappearing again. At first, I thought it might just be a misdialed number. Maybe the guy fat-fingered something and accidentally hit mine instead of Ethan. We have the same area code still. I've had my number forever. So has Ethan, I think. But the more I thought about it, the more something itched at the back of my brain. That name, Joliet. It rang a bell. Not a place Ethan had ever been to as far as I knew, but maybe something he'd mentioned once, a story from college, a reference in passing. And that voice, there was something about the way he said, "if you ever did," like he wasn't just some guy hopping for a callback, like he was carrying a history on his back and Ethan had been part of it. I should have ignored it, should have shrugged it off, deleted the message, gone on with my day. But I didn't. Instead, I pulled up my messages and texted Ethan. "You know someone in Joliet who left you a voicemail? It came to me by mistake." No reply. 3 hours later, I followed up. "Sounded urgent, guy said he was clean, mentioned you hadn't responded before." Still nothing. By 6 that evening, I sent the voicemail itself, just forwarded it, no comment. That finally got a reaction. Ethan replied with exactly 3 words. "Delete that, Drew." That's when I knew. Something was buried. And whether I wanted to or not, I just brushed against it. I didn't delete it. Instead, I saved the voicemail to a folder and wrote down the callback number. I stared at it for a good 10 minutes, debating. It wasn't mine to return. This was Ethan's past, Ethan's contact, Ethan's mess, maybe. But something about that message had struck a nerve. Maybe it was the quiet defeat in the guy's voice. Maybe it was the way Ethan told me to erase it, like I'd trespassed. I knew my brother, or at least I thought I did. He was meticulous, guarded, the kind of guy who kept spreadsheets for vacation planning and organized his spice rack alphabetically. He didn't drink much. He volunteered at blood drives. He voted early and wore those little "I voted" stickers like medals. So who the hell was this? Who was this man that had Ethan's number and a history with him deep enough to crack through like that? The next morning, I tried calling the number. It rang twice, then went straight to voicemail. No name, no greeting, just a generic "you've reached" and a beep. I didn't leave a message. Instead, I looked up the number online. No results, burner phone probably. Then I searched the area code. It was indeed Joliet, which, as it turns out, has a halfway house facility for post-release rehab residents. That's when the hair on my arm stood up. Clean, moved, caseworker, 10 months. Whoever this guy was, he wasn't just down on his luck, he was coming out of something. Addiction, incarceration, maybe both. And Ethan had been involved enough at some point to be listed as a contact. My brother, Mr. Clean Record, Mr. Quarterly Donations, was in the orbit of someone who had a caseworker and tracked sobriety milestones. I couldn't make sense of it. I left another text that afternoon. "What is going on, Ethan?" No reply. 2 days passed. Then I got a voice memo. Not a call, a voice memo. Ethan's voice was clipped, low, unreadable. "Don't call that number again, it's not what you think, just let it go." That's it. No explanation, no name, no closure. And suddenly I wasn't just curious, I was angry. You don't tell your own brother let it go when a man from your past calls sounding like that. You don't dodge questions. You don't act like the only concern is whether I called back or not. So I did the opposite of what he asked. I drove to Joliet. The steering wheel wasn't hot, just tight in my grip. It sat there like a question I couldn't let go of. Every exit sign I passed on the way to Joliet felt like a dare: turn off, turn around, go back to what you knew before that voicemail ever reached you. It was a little over an hour's drive, straight shot freeway mostly. Not much traffic, not much music either. I turned the radio off halfway through a song I usually liked. I just needed to think. I wasn't planning to confront anyone. I didn't even know who I was looking for. But something about the voice in that message, worn, honest, tired, had stayed with me. It didn't feel like a scam or some manipulative cry for attention. It felt like someone trying to reach a tether that had snapped a long time ago. Ethan's reaction had only made it worse. Let it go, that wasn't like him. He could be quiet, even avoidant, sure, but cold, never. I found the facility without much trouble. A squat beige building tucked behind a strip mall not far from a bus terminal. A metal sign out front read Midwest Transitional Housing Services. There were a few guys on the stoop out front, smoking, chatting low, keeping to themselves. One nodded at me as I parked. I sat in the car a minute too long, second-guessing everything. Then I got out. Inside, a woman behind a plexiglass window looked up from her monitor. She was wearing a fleece vest with the logo of the facility and had the patient weariness of someone who'd been interrupted too many times that morning already. "Can I help you?" "Yeah, I'm looking for someone. I think he left me a voicemail. His number came from here, I think." She raised an eyebrow, polite but guarded. "You have a name?" "No, just a number." I held up my phone. He said he was clean, 10 months, said he was moved here, mentioned a caseworker. That got her attention a bit more. She leaned back in her chair and called toward the hallway behind her. "Jess, you got someone 10 months clean from the Joliet list, left a message for an Ethan." A moment passed. Then a woman appeared in scrubs, late 30s maybe, badge clipped to her chest, JESSICA-LINWOOD, LCSW. She glanced at me, then at the woman at the desk. "What's going on?" The receptionist gestured toward me. "He says someone called him, left a voicemail for someone named Ethan. No name, just said he was clean and moved here." Jessica studied me. "You a relative?" "I'm Ethan's brother. My name's Drew. I think the guy meant to call him, not me." She nodded slowly. "Can I hear the message?" I handed over my phone. She listened, head tilted just slightly, and I watched her face change. Not dramatically, just the way someone's expression settles when they recognize a name they'd hoped not to. When the message ended, she handed it back. "His name's Clay," she said quietly. "Clay Martin." "Do you know what I mean, why he'd be calling Ethan?" Jessica hesitated, then she did something I didn't expect. She opened the door to the staff hallway and said, "Come with me." She led me down a hallway that smelled like hand sanitizer and microwave noodles. Every door we passed had a nameplate, residence, I guessed. One door was open, revealing a guy in sweatpants folding laundry on his bed with slow, precise movements. Finally, we stopped at a door marked 118. "He's at his work assignment right now," Jessica said, "but I think you deserve a little context." She motioned for me to follow her into the adjoining office where she sat on the edge of the desk instead of behind it. I stayed standing. "Clay, been in and out of our system for a long time," she began. "Mostly drug-related, a few stints inside. Last time he came out, he was transferred here. That was 11 months ago." I waited, unsure how much I was allowed to know. Jessica seemed to weigh her words before continuing. "He listed 2 emergency contacts when he arrived, a former sponsor in Springfield and your brother Ethan." I blinked. "That doesn't make sense." "Ethan does. I mean, he doesn't even drink. He's a grant manager for a housing nonprofit. He's never talked about Clay." Jessica nodded. "It surprised us too, but the thing is, Clay and Ethan have a history, a deep one." "What kind of history?" She paused again carefully. "They met through a youth mentoring program years ago, back when Ethan was in grad school. He was paired with Clay as part of his practicum hours. From what Clay told us, Ethan was the first person in his life who treated him like he wasn't disposable." I sank slowly into the chair behind me. Jessica went on. "They stayed in touch even after the program ended. Ethan wrote letters when Clay was inside. Clay mentioned Ethan had even tried to help him get into a training program once, but Clay relapsed. It broke something between them." I tried to imagine it, my brother, methodical, polished Ethan, showing up week after week for someone like Clay, writing him letters, risking disappointment. "And now?" I asked. Jessica folded her arms. "Clay been trying to reach him ever since he got clean, but Ethan stopped responding after the last relapse. I think he doesn't believe it'll stick." I swallowed hard. "Is Clay okay? I mean mentally?" "He's doing better than I've ever seen him," she said, "but hearing nothing back from Ethan, it's been weighing on him." That voicemail was sort of a last-ditch thing. That's when I felt it, this aching, complicated knot of emotion I didn't have a name for, some combination of pride in Ethan and disappointment, respect and anger, curiosity and fear. I had spent the last year thinking my brother had turned into someone cold, someone distant, but now I was staring at the possibility that he had been hiding a part of himself, a painful, generous human part that I'd never been allowed to see. Before I left, Jessica gave me something. "He wrote this last week, was going to mail it to Ethan. He didn't have an address." She handed me a folded letter in a plain envelope, sealed but unmarked. "I probably shouldn't be giving this to you," she added, "but Clay thinks about your brother every day. If Ethan won't open the door, maybe you can help crack a window." I nodded and took the letter. It felt heavier than it should have. Back home, I didn't open it, not right away. I kept it on the counter for a day, then 2. I waited for Ethan to call. He didn't. Finally, on the 3rd day, I sent him another message. "I know about Clay." No response. So I took a deep breath and opened the envelope. "Just read it already," my coworker said, like we were talking about a fortune cookie, not a sealed letter that might crack open the part of my brother I'd never been let into. I didn't answer. I just stared at the envelope in my lap, the weight of it pulling my knees together like it might fall straight through me. I opened the letter at my lunch break. Sat in the front seat of the work van, parked behind the high school gym, engine off, windows half cracked, the smell of old solder and tool oil mixing with something else I couldn't name. The envelope peeled open slower than I meant it to. Inside, a page and a half written in careful block letters like the writer was trying not to make a mistake. Blue ink, no smudges. I read it once, then again. Hear what it said. "Ethan." I didn't think I'd write again. The last time I did, you didn't answer, and I figured that was your answer. But today was rough, and I found myself saying your name again. The counselor said maybe writing would help even if it didn't go anywhere, so here it is. "I wanted you to know I'm still clean, 10 months, 13 days, still counting. Still scared of it not being enough, still trying to believe I can build something out of all this. I remember the first time you came to meet me, you brought a notebook and a sandwich. You didn't judge the smell in the rec room. You sat across from me like we were equals, like I wasn't some statistic you had to check off. I don't know what to call what you gave me, patience, hope, dignity. You once said people don't change overnight, but they do change in silence when no one's looking. I've tried to hold on to that. I still don't expect anything from you. You gave me enough already. But if this letter finds you, if it sits in your pocket for even 5 minutes before you toss it, just know I never forgot. Thanks for believing in me, even when I didn't. Clay asterisk. I folded the letter back with hands that felt too big, too clumsy, set it in the passenger seat like it needed its own space. The words buzzed in my chest. I didn't cry, not then, but I gripped the steering wheel for longer than I meant to, just to keep myself grounded. That night I called Ethan. He didn't pick up, so I sent a picture of the letter. No caption, no commentary, just the image. It took him 12 hours to respond. The next morning I woke to a one-line reply. You had no right. I stared at the screen, half awake, heart drumming against my ribs like I'd been caught doing something shameful, but the shame didn't last, not long. Because the more I thought about it, the more I realized that what I'd done wasn't about intrusion, it was about illumination. He hadn't told me anything, not about Clay, not about the mentoring program, not about the letters or the relapse or the grief. He cut me out of a part of his life that clearly mattered, and now he was angry that I'd found it. That weekend, I went to my dad's place to help fix his garage door opener. Standard Saturday, coffee, tools, some quiet between us that was more comfortable than awkward. We were halfway through swapping the unit when I asked him offhand, "Did Ethan ever talk to you about working with people in rehab or prison outreach?" My dad looked at me like I just asked if Ethan had joined a motorcycle gang. "No," he said. "Why?" I shrugged, just wondering. He wiped his hands on a rag. Ethan never wanted to talk about anything after grad school. He kept everything close. "You ever worry about that?" Dad gave a small laugh. "You mean besides always?" That sat between us for a while. I didn't press, neither did he. Monday, I called the number from the voicemail again. It rang 3 times this time before I got the same message. Still no name, still no voice. But this time I left one. "Hi Clay, my name's Drew. I'm Ethan's brother. I got your voicemail by mistake, but I wanted you to know I heard it, and I read your letter." Pause. "You don't owe me anything. I'm not calling to pry. I wanted you to know that someone heard you." I left my number, hung up. Didn't expect anything back. 3 days passed. Then one night, my phone buzzed at 1 in the morning. Voicemail. Not a call, just a voicemail. I sat up in bed, the room lit only by the dull blue of the charging dock. My heart thudded in my chest as I tapped play. Clay's voice came through again, this time steadier, more present. "Hey, Drew, thanks for calling. I didn't think anyone would. I guess I should have figured you read the letter. I left it out like bait, hoping someone might care enough to take it. I didn't mean to cause problems between you and Ethan. That wasn't the goal. He saved my life once, not in some movie scene way, just by showing up, by giving a damn. I think I clung to that harder than I should have. I don't blame him for walking away. I blew it more than once, and he deserved peace. But it means something that you called. Anyway, thanks." "Really?" I sat there, phone against my ear, even after the message ended. The silence in my room felt softer somehow. Like maybe the world hadn't split open, just cracked a little to let in something real. The next day I called Ethan again. No voicemail this time, he answered. "Why are you doing this?" He said, no hello. I didn't flinch. "Because you won't." A long pause. "Then you don't know what he put me through." "You're right," I said. "I don't, but you never told me." There was a sound on the line, maybe a chair creaking, maybe Ethan standing up. He relapsed 3 times, each one worse than the last. I found out about the second one from the county clerk's page. The 3rd time, he used my name as an emergency contact during a probation hearing. I got a call at work in the middle of a staff meeting. I didn't say anything. I told myself I was done, that I couldn't keep attaching my life to someone who didn't want to live theirs. I let that hang. Then quietly I said, "He's clean now. I don't care." I did flinch that time. But I understood it. And maybe that was worse. Later that night I wrote Clay a message. Just a few lines. "Hey, I don't know if Ethan will ever talk to you again, but I will, if that counts for anything." He replied the next morning. "It does." The phone was warm from sitting on the windowsill all morning. I picked it up like it might burn me. 3 missed calls, none from Ethan. One from a number I'd saved under CM, like I needed to trick myself into believing it wasn't personal. Clay and I started texting once a week, then more. Not long, drawn-out conversations, just check-ins, a photo of his chipped coffee mug, a line about a woodworking class he'd picked up through a volunteer group, a text that said rain makes the cravings worse, trying to sleep through it. I kept them, all of them. I didn't tell Ethan I stopped trying. Whatever part of himself he'd given Clay was locked away behind something I couldn't name. Guilt maybe, exhaustion, or shame, not that I could blame him. Loving someone who falls over and over again can start to feel like self-harm. I got that. But I also knew what silence could do to a person trying to rebuild. And Clay was trying harder than most people I knew who had every advantage in the world. About 6 weeks after I first drove to Joliet, Clay called me in the middle of a Friday afternoon. I was on a ladder fixing a classroom ceiling vent. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to it in the truck on my break. Hey Drew, sorry to call out of the blue, just had a meeting with the transitional board, got approved for independent housing. First time in years. I don't know why I'm telling you this like it's your win too, but I guess it kind of feels like it is. Anyway, just wanted to share, thanks again. I smiled at that one, not a big grin, just something quiet, real. The next day, I drove out to the new place. It was a walk-up above a closed-down video rental store, the kind of building that used to hold someone's dream back when Blockbuster was still a thing. Now the windows were dust-smudged, the lettering half-peeled. But the stairs were clean, the door had a new deadbolt, the name on the buzzer said Martin. He buzzed me in. When Clay opened the door, I didn't know what I expected. He looked ordinary, 40-ish, worn at the edges, eyes a little sunken but alert. He had a faded Cubs shirt on, the collar stretched, socks but no shoes. You actually came, he said, stepping aside. I'm stubborn, I replied. Inside, the place was spare but clean. A futon, a folding chair, a plastic tote as a coffee table. On the counter, a little whiteboard calendar with job interview times scribbled in red. You want water? He asked. Sure. He handed me a bottle from the fridge, same brand I keep in my garage. Weird, the things that bridge 2 different lives. We sat, he took the futon, I took the chair. And for a long time, neither of us said anything. Then Clay broke the silence. You still mad at your brother? I blinked, I'm not sure that's the right word anymore. What's the word then? I think I'm confused by him, or maybe disappointed in myself for assuming I knew the whole story. Clay nodded. He loved hard, that's the thing. When he believed in someone, it wasn't halfway, he believed. And when I blew it, I didn't just break his trust, I broke whatever was holding him up. He took a sip of his water, looked out the window. Light filtered through the blinds in pale strips across the floor. I hurt him, he said quietly, and he walked away so he wouldn't lose himself. I can't blame him for that. I don't either, I said, but I also can't pretend it doesn't matter that he never said any of it. Not to me, not to anyone. Clay tilted his head. He always kept the good stuff quiet, like he was afraid it'd get dirty if too many people touched it. We sat there for a while longer, talking about everything and nothing. At some point, he mentioned the name of the dog he wanted to get, Milo, if he ever got cleared to keep pets. Said he was saving up for a bike too, not a car, a bike. Closer to the ground that way, he said, less to fall from. Before I left, I asked if he'd want to try again with Ethan, one more time. He smiled soft, only if he asked me first. The next week, I did something I hadn't done in years. I invited Ethan to coffee. No preamble, no guilt trip, just, let's meet, not to argue, just talk, this Sunday, 3 p.m., that place on Main you used to like. To my surprise, he said yes. Sunday came, the sky was overcast but warm. I got there early, ordered for both of us black coffee, 1 iced tea, left them sitting on the table, a silent welcome mat. Ethan showed up 2 minutes late, still crisp, still calm, still him. He sat down, looked at the drinks. You remembered. Muscle memory. We were quiet for a beat. Then I said I met him. He didn't ask who, he just closed his eyes for a second, breathed. Of course you did, he said. You always go poking into things you don't understand. I wasn't trying to expose you. I didn't think you were, I didn't want you to see that part of me. Why? He looked at me, and for the first time in years I saw something real behind the glass. Not anger, not avoidance. Grief. Because that part of me failed, he said. Clay relapsed after I vouched for him, twice. I had to sit in meetings and justify it to my board. I lost credibility, I lost friends, and when he used again the third time, I lost something else, something bigger. What? I stopped believing I could fix people. I didn't know what to say to that. So I said nothing. After a long moment, Ethan leaned forward. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to drag you into it, because I knew you care, and I didn't want you to get hurt the way I did. That's not your call, man. I know. We sat there until the drinks were gone. Before he stood to leave, he asked one last thing. Is he doing all right? He is. Ethan nodded. Good. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, a copy of the letter, not the original, just the words. I handed it to him. He stared at it. Then quietly, you kept this. Some things deserve to be kept. He took it. Didn't open it. Just slipped it into his jacket. Then he said, tell him thank you. I used to think my brother was untouchable, not perfect, but unshakable, clean, upright, stainless in a way I could never be. Funny how much of that was just projection. Funny how little of him I actually knew. Ethan never told me if he read the letter. He didn't follow up after that Sunday coffee. No thank you, no apology, no midnight epiphany text. But 2 weeks later, Clay messaged me out of the blue. Your brother called. That was it. 5 words, no emojis, no elaboration. I stared at the screen for a solid minute before replying. How did it go? He responded with a photo. Not of them together, not some posed smile. Just the kitchen table in Clay's apartment, 2 mugs, one with tea, one with black coffee, and in the background, barely visible, Ethan's coat slung over the back of the futon. That image said more than any paragraph ever could. It meant Ethan had shown up. Not just called, not just texted, but come, sat, stayed long enough to get cold, long enough to leave something behind. And that was more than I ever thought he'd give. I didn't ask Clay for details, he didn't offer them. Some things, I think, belong to the people living them. Later that month, I found myself driving past Clay's street again on my way back from a job. No plan to stop, just muscle memory guiding the wheel a little too slow. He was out front, sitting on the stoop with a plastic container of leftovers, t-shirt, jeans, sandals, squinting into the sun like it was trying to tell him something. When he saw me, he waved. I pulled over. Thought you were just passing by, he said when I got out. I was. You're bad at that. I shrugged. You want to ride anywhere? He looked up the street, like the answer might be walking toward him. Now I'm good here. We sat for a while, no agenda, just that quiet, clean kind of silence that doesn't demand anything from you. Eventually I said, he's not the same since that day, something's different, softer maybe. Clay nodded. I don't need him to be the same, he said. I just needed him to remember who he was when he believed in me. I didn't have a reply for that. But it settled inside me like a stone in a river, weighty, shifting the current just enough. Ethan and I don't talk more now than we did before. But when we do, it's different. Less polite, more honest. He'll mention things in passing now, hard cases, relapse rates, the kid in his building who reminds him of someone. He never says Clay's name, but I know the echo when I hear it. And I tell him things, too, about the maintenance calls where I end up fixing more than just vents, about the student who gave me a drawing of Mr. Drew's magic ladder. We're not healed, but we're open. Which is something. One night, a few months after all this started, I got another voicemail. Same number, Clay again. I played it on speaker, sitting on my porch, letting the breeze cut the heat of the day. Hey, Drew, just wanted to say thank you, not just for showing up, for staying when I didn't even know I needed you to. You didn't have to call back, you didn't have to drive down here, you didn't have to read that letter, but you did. And you probably saved more than just me by doing it. Tell your brother I'm rooting for him, even when he's silent. Tell yourself the same. That was the last voicemail I got from Clay for a while. Not because anything went wrong, but because he was busy. He got the job. He got the dog. Not Milo Turner, long story apparently. And last I heard, he was helping teach a small recovery class just once a week at the same facility he used to live in. They gave him a key. You never really know what someone's carrying until the message meant for them lands in your lap. And once it does, you either delete it or you listen. I'm glad I listened, even if it broke the picture I had of my brother. Because what I found underneath the frame was someone who had once believed in redemption so hard he bled for it. And someone else who still needed to. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.